My parents have never let me say, "I'm home," when I walk through the door. I just found out the horrifying reason why. Every family has a greeting. Most kids yell, "I'm home," when they walk in from school. Not me. My parents taught me to knock twice on the doorframe and say, "It's me." If I ever forgot and started to say those two words, Mom would flinch like I'd slapped her. Dad would leave the room. So I learned, knock twice. It's me. Every single time. Friends thought it was bizarre. I made up excuses. Cultural thing. Family tradition. I didn't know the real reason until last week. I was helping Mom clean out the attic after Dad's stroke. He's recovering, but they're downsizing. Less stairs, smaller house. I found a box hidden behind the Christmas decorations. No label. Taped shut. Inside were baby clothes. 2 matching sets of everything. 2 hospital bracelets with the same date of birth. 2 tiny footprint cards. And a birth certificate I'd never seen. Lily Ann. Same birthday as mine. Same parents. Mom. She was standing in the attic doorway. When she saw what I was holding, she sat down on the dusty floor like her legs had failed her. "You had a twin," she whispered. Her name was Lily. "I don't have a twin. I've never had a twin. I've been an only child for 26 years. She lived for 3 days. A heart defect they didn't catch until after delivery. She was so small, so perfect. And then she was gone." Mom pulled out a photo from the box. 2 newborns wrapped in identical blankets. One was me. One was my sister. We were holding hands between our bassinets. You cried for weeks after we brought you home. You'd reach for something that wasn't there. You'd turn your head like you were looking for someone. The doctor said you couldn't possibly remember her. But I think you did. I think you knew something was missing. She traced Lily's face in the photo. When you started talking, your first sentence wasn't "Mama" or "Dada." You walked through the front door after a car ride and said, "We're home." Not "I'm home, we're home." Like you knew there should be 2 of you. She was crying now. I collapsed right there in the hallway. Your father had to carry me to bed. You were 2 years old and you just reminded us of the daughter we'd buried. She wiped her eyes. After that, we couldn't hear it. Any version of those words. Every time someone said "I'm home," I heard "We're home" in your little voice. I heard the sister who should have been walking through that door with you. She squeezed my hand. So we made a new rule, a new greeting, something that didn't remind us of what was supposed to be. Knock twice. It's me, singular, because that was the truth we had to accept. There was only one of you now. I sat with my mother in that dusty attic, surrounded by boxes of a life that should have included 4 people instead of 3. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because you got to live without that loss. You got to be whole instead of half. We didn't want you to spend your life feeling incomplete, wondering who you would have been with a sister, missing someone you couldn't remember. She pulled out another photo. Me at 5 years old, standing in front of a gravestone. We took you to visit her every year on your birthday. We told you it was a special garden. You'd pick flowers and leave them on her stone without knowing why. I remembered those trips. The special garden with the pretty stones. The flowers I'd placed so carefully on a rock with an angel carved into it. I never knew I was visiting my twin. I want to see her, really see her, knowing who she is. We went that afternoon. Mom and I stood at Lily's grave for the first time together, both of us understanding what we were looking at. The stone read, "Lily Ann, beloved daughter and sister, 3 days on earth, forever in our hearts." I knelt down and touched the carved angel. "Hi, Lily. It's me, your sister. Sorry it took so long to officially meet you. I placed flowers like I had as a child, but this time I knew why." Mom held my hand. "You can say it now, if you want. I think I'm ready to hear it." I stood up and looked at her. "Are you sure?" She nodded through her tears. That evening I walked through my parents' front door. I didn't knock twice. I didn't say, "It's me." Instead, I said the words my mother hadn't heard in 26 years. "We're home." Mom broke down in the hallway. But this time she wasn't collapsing from grief. She was releasing it, finally acknowledging out loud that there were supposed to be 2 of us, that there still are, in every way that matters. I say it every time now. We're home. One voice speaking for 2 sisters, the one who lived and the one who didn't. Both of us walking through that door together.
I reported my brother to our landlord after what he did to my wife. My brother Sam and I have lived in the same building for 2 years. Different flats, same landlord, 3 floors apart. It had been fine between us. We got on. We had dinner together sometimes. I thought living close to family was a genuinely good thing, and I was wrong about that in the specific way you are wrong about things that cannot ever be taken back. My wife Lena works from home 3 days a week. She's alone in the flat on those days, and I am in the office. And this is relevant to what happened on the Tuesday in question. Sam had come up to our floor and knocked on our door. Lena answered. She told him I was at work and asked if she could help. He said he needed to borrow something from our kitchen, a specific pan that he claimed he had lent us several months ago, and that he now needed back. Lena said she wasn't completely certain about any pan, but she would have a look and he could wait by the door while she did. She went to the kitchen. When she came back into the hallway, Sam had let himself further into the flat. He was standing in the middle of our living room looking at things on the shelves. Lena asked him to wait by the door. He said he was only having a quick look around. She asked him again to please move back to the door, and he told her she was being uptight in her own home. She texted me while he was still standing there. The message said Sam was in the flat and she wanted him to leave and he was not going. I called her immediately and told her to put me on speaker. I told Sam clearly that he needed to leave our flat right now. He said I was being ridiculous and he was just getting his pan back. I told him there was no pan and had never been one, and he needed to leave. He called me a name I will not repeat here, then said something to Lena that I will also not repeat here, and left. I got home 2 hours later. Lena told me the full version of what had happened, and I sat with it for the rest of the evening without saying much. The next morning I went down 3 floors to Sam's flat and knocked on his door. I told him clearly what he had done was not acceptable and I needed an apology. He said Lena had overreacted and he had only been looking for a pan. I told him there was no pan and he had let himself into a space my wife had not invited him into, and had refused to leave when she asked him to. Leave twice, and had spoken to her in a way that had frightened her in her own home, and I needed him to understand that. He said she was simply being dramatic. I told him that if he ever came to our door again when I was not home, he would not be let in, and if he came in anyway, I was going to report him to the landlord as an unwanted entry to our flat. He laughed. Not a nervous laugh. An actual full laugh, as though it was the funniest thing he had heard in a long while. I called the landlord that same afternoon and gave a full and detailed account of what had happened from beginning to end. The landlord took it seriously and called Sam that same day to warn him formally and in writing that any further entry to our flat without explicit prior permission from both tenants would be grounds for a tenancy review. Sam texted me 12 times that evening. I read every single one. I replied to none of them. He called our mom 2 days later. My mom called me and said I had gone too far with this and it was family, and she needed me to sort it out. I told her that Lena had texted me from inside her her own living room, asking me please to get my brother to leave. My mom went quiet for a moment, then she said she understood. I told her good. Sam moved out of the building entirely 3 months after that conversation. He has said it was his choice. I have no way of knowing whether that is true, and I find that I genuinely do not care. Lena now locks the door when she works from home. She did not used to. I still think about that often. Subscribe for more stories.
I told my sister she was the reason this family hated each other. I said it at my dad's 65th birthday dinner with 9 people at the table, and I meant every single word. My sister Nicole has a gift for taking any situation involving more than 2 family members and finding the angle that creates the most damage. Not loudly. She does it quietly, through carefully placed information, through telling person A what person B said in a way that's technically accurate but stripped of every piece of context that would make it harmless. She'd been doing it our entire lives, and our family had been fracturing along the lines she created for 30 years without anyone ever pinning it to her. My dad's 65th was the first time everyone had agreed to be in the same room in 4 years. My mom and aunt hadn't spoken properly since a falling out 3 years ago. My uncle and cousin had a rift over a business disagreement that had turned personal in ways nobody fully understood. My brother and I had spent 18 months barely speaking after he'd heard I'd apparently called his wife difficult. What I'd actually said was she'd been having a difficult time. Different words, entirely different meaning, the kind of misquote that could only survive if someone had helped it along. I'd spent a week making calls before the dinner, not accusatory ones, just asking my mom what exactly my aunt had said, asking my brother the exact words he'd been told I'd used, asking my uncle what had turned the business dispute personal. The answers all came back pointing the same direction, every single time. Nicole had been the one who'd passed the information. Nicole had been the one who'd framed it. I'd gone into that week with a suspicion and come out of it with a certainty I couldn't unknow. She arrived 20 minutes late, kissed my dad, took her seat, and started talking about her week. I let her finish. Then I said her name. She looked at me. Everyone looked at me. My dad put his fork down. I told her I'd spent a week talking to everyone at this table and needed her to hear what I'd found. Her smile stayed on a moment too long before it faded. I told her mom and aunt hadn't spoken for 3 years because of something Nicole had told aunt that mom had apparently said. And when I'd asked mom directly, the original words were completely different. That my brother and I had spent 18 months barely speaking because of words Nicole had passed on that weren't the words I'd used. That every fracture in this family had Nicole's fingerprints on it because she'd taken real things and shifted them slightly, like adjusting a photograph so the light falls differently, and suddenly everything looks wrong. The table was completely silent. My mom was looking at Nicole, my brother was looking at Nicole, my aunt had both hands flat on the table. Nicole said I was creating a narrative, and this was about me never liking her. I told her I'd listed specific conversations with specific words, and I needed her to tell me which part was the narrative. She said people misremembered things. I told her 4 people had all misremembered in the same direction. My dad said nothing for a long time. Then he said, Nicole, is any of this true? She said things got complicated sometimes, and she'd only ever been trying to help people understand each other. My dad nodded slowly in a way that wasn't agreement. Nicole left before dessert. My dad said quietly she wasn't being attacked. She was being asked questions, and those were different things. She got her coat anyway. My mom and aunt talked properly for the first time in 3 years after Nicole left. Just talked. About my dad, about how he looked older and somehow the same. It was the most normal the table had felt all evening. My dad called me the next morning and said he didn't know what to do with it yet. I told him I wasn't asking him to do anything. I just needed it said out loud in a room where everyone could hear it. He said he understood. Subscribe for more stories.